Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're definitely happy and thrilled to be a part of Fashion into Oceans and the Global Fashion Exchange with Eco Shaker, Peace Boat US, and everybody who has brought this fantastic event together. We are here to speak about the oceans and the coastal communities that reside by it. Worldwide, people and the community are strengthening the ties to each other, and climate issue is a change that has sparked concern among the communities on every continent. Millions of people live by the shores of the sea, and human activity has set pace for the lives of the people for whom climate change is an immediate threat. With fashion, we all have a responsibility to serve through work and to strive for equality and justice. In our pursuit for beauty, we have made ugly the lives of the people who have served us. But fashion has power to change. So we're going to give it a chance. The conversation here is a very needed mix between science and art, where we will understand the implications of the oceans and the lives of the people who depend on it. I am Runa Ray, a fashion environmentalist and a documentary designer, and I'm here to discuss with you fashion and the coastal communities. I have here with me Dr. Johnson Jamment, who's instrumental for his contributions towards the oceans and the communities that reside by it. He works predominantly with the Mukawa community in the south of India. The community is endangered due to the destructive fishing practices and commercial fishing. Their livelihood is threatened. And we had Dr. Johnson Jamment, who was also invited by the United Nations for his scientific research and the contributions that were done towards the Mukawa community. Let us listen to Dr. Johnson Jamment. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us all the way from India. I know this is quite late for you, but we look forward to this opportunity to speaking with you and for the knowledge that you have to give us. So, I come from the fashion industry, and we all know that fashion is a large contributing factor when it comes to pollution. One of the things of fashion that really bother me is the textile industries and the dyeing industries and the water pollution that actually gets into the seas. We all know that it's extremely polluting and it's toxic to man and the ocean, but could you give us from your side what is it that actually does happen when you have the toxins and you have the textile waste that seeps from the land and enters our waters?
Thank you, Runa, for the invitation to this conversation, which is very important. And also, I say hi from India. So it's a good luck for this event. I'm happy to share my experience and knowledge with you. Yeah, the textile dyeing wastewater. So one of the most environmental issue discussed by many scientists all over the world. So what happens to the ocean? Many fishermen here actually complain about this because the water becomes polluted. So scientific community also confirmed this. The contaminated water by this textile dyeing wastewater actually makes inhabitable for many marine species. So it becomes very difficult for the reoxygenation capacity of the water. So the sunlight being resisted because of this, then therefore the nutrient content of the water becomes less. So a lot of marine organisms actually find difficult to get the natural nutrient they usually have from the ocean water. So this hugely affect the photosynthesis process of the marine plants or algae. Therefore, we have a few number of fish species and few number of varieties of fish species. These fish species are actually hugely affected by this wastewater. In India, in particular, this wastewater from the fashion industry or textile dyeing wastewater actually not treated well. So therefore, this untreated wastewater actually reach to the ocean through the river and also some other mechanisms used by the industrialists directly connected to the ocean. So therefore, reaches the water. It's make a huge problem for the marine water. Other aspects of this will be um, because of this color and other important aspects of this wastewater, this become very difficult for the people who also visit the beaches. Because as we know, naturally ocean produces more than 50% of the oxygen. So the breathable oxygen are not gained by the visitors when they come to the beaches. So this make also the contaminated water actually makes problem for breathable oxygen, which are freely available to the common people.
Understand. No, I think what you said was extremely right, that there's a lot of water that is going, which is untreated from the fashion industry. And I have been pushing for a lot of recycling programs, because even in as you know, in India, you have a lot of bespoke that happens. Bespoke is where you have a lot of customization. So you have a lot of people who come by and they have particular colors that they want to get made. So, and if they're really adamant that they want this particular pink or this particular red, they have to have it the same way. So it's the same amount of water that goes into creating, you know, like if you could you know, like I keep saying, that you could create like a fabric swatch which is like half a meter, or you're making something which is 200 meters. The process is the same. You're still using the same harmful dyes that is getting into the waters and still contaminating the oceans at the end of the day. This brings me to the point as to what we did from the fashion industry, and which I think is important for most fish fashion designers to do, is to keep all the processes ecologically friendly. So when we were invited to Lisbon, I decided to showcase a collection which was done with the art of water printing. So this is an ancient craft that was it started off in Japan, and then it was in the Ottoman Empire in Turkey. It was basically where you had the inks that floated on the water, and then you had the garment that was spread on it, and we lifted it. What we ended up doing was we had like just 40 liters of water, and we got to dye 250 meters of fabric, and all the inks were like organically produced, because we extracted the chlorophyll from the discarded flower markets. So coming back to the point, we need to start probably going back and stepping back and seeing as designers what indigenous ideas we could probably use that is going to be beneficial to the oceans, and at the same time not be detrimental towards the coastal communities that live by it. That brings me to another very important pressing factor, and that is the the micro particles that are being released because of synthetic garments. So every wash releases these tiny microplastics into the ocean. So tell me, what is it that the microplastics actually do? And because I know that as designers we need to be really careful with the kind of fabrics that we choose, and we do know that there's microplastics that are being released. But tell me, from your scientific research background, what is it that actually happens?
So usually when scientists discuss about the microplastics, they are worried about actually these microplastics also come into our food, and naturally it's also come into our body as well. So how it comes, because this natural environment, the ocean water, actually conducive for this microplastics hidden because it is transparent. Then the usually the fish species consume them, seeing that this is very natural. So therefore, it goes into the marine species. So that is the main issue people usually discuss. The other issue with the microplastics, so especially during high waves time, the microparticles actually become part of the beach sand,
Mm,
because the high waves actually destroy the microplastics, and the microplastics actually become a part of the beach sand. Then what happens when people visit these beaches? Then people play there, especially children do a lot of different activities at the beach. So then it become the polluted beach sand, or not good beach sand, become part of the life of these people. Then naturally when they play with it, it will become part of their, then it will affect their health. So these are the two main issues usually people discuss when they talk about the microplastics.
mm.
So the main issue is we cannot see them. We are not able to separate from the ocean water. So for that, we need to do a lot of scientific research. You need a lot of test to the ocean water. So, for example, many countries like developing countries, sometimes these kind of tests are not conducted very well. Therefore, we are not able to identify the existence of microplastics. So, therefore, we are not able to guide the people who actually use marine resources for livelihood and also for their food consumptions. So we are not given proper education to understand this. So in fact, we need a lot of research to identify how microplastics actually impact our own lives and also the marine organisms, and how it impacts on the people who visit the beaches.
I completely understand and I completely agree, because I think that is a very, very important factor that we need to take into consideration, because what you don't see, you don't believe. And like you said, these are like so tiny and so minuscule that we are ingesting it even through breathing, and I didn't even think about it getting into the sand and playing with it, which could actually be even more harmful, because it's like indirect and like it's direct connection with the skin. And I also feel that every process needs to be ecologically friendly and environmentally friendly. So it's a good thing that we heard the aspect from your side as to what plastics actually do. So from our side as designers, we need to make sure that fashion has to be sustainable at its core. We cannot just introduce ourselves saying that we are a sustainable organization, but it has to be a part. We have to have the North Star, which is the SDGs guiding us and taking us forward, because it was as relevant as it was in 2015, and it is still relevant now. Another thing that we were doing with some of the fisher folk was where we were using a lot of these nets that were left behind, the synthetic nets that are normally left behind during fishing. And we also know that it's pretty detrimental, because in the US alone, because of crab fishing, you have a lot of whales that are caught in the nets, and this completely disrupts the life cycle of the oceans, and because of the scavenger fish and everything. But what we did was we worked with a few people where we got to collect some of these nets and make them, and use the fisherwomen to make, like, the hanging pots or the curios, and even the sailboat, the plastic that was left behind by the sailboats, they were converted into bags. But I would like to hear from you as to, uh, is there any other alternative that we could probably have to the kind of nets that we are using right now? Because we are trying to clean up a mess that already exists. And of course, we're trying to give it another chance from the creative side. But just for knowledge, can you let us know as to how the indigenous communities are affected by this?
Yeah, Yeah, just to answer your question, I have to start with a little bit of history of the indigenous coastal community in South India here.
Mm,
So they used to use hook and line fishing. So hook and line fishing is one of the most uh, sustainable fishing techniques used by the communities here. So in order to catch the demersal fishes and also the pelagic fishes, they use this technology. So you can see that there is only a line and also a number of hooks, or a lot of sometimes they also many different types of hooks, but it will be one line. Even if it is destroyed, there is very, in comparison to net, it is very less. So that is what a lot of indigenous communities, that background where I'm coming from, they use. So in order to have this use of this technology, the fishing community should have the knowledge about the underwater ecosystem. So many indigenous community have this knowledge. Therefore, they know how to catch fishes using this technology. So hook and line fishing instead of net fishing may be an idea to practice with. The other aspect, many fishing communities also use different kinds of nets, not just synthetic nets. They also use some other nets which usually considered to be environmental friendly.
mm.
So the naturally available materials they make into different nets, then those nets were used by these fisher folk. Unfortunately, over the years, these two type of fishing techniques being sidelined, then more and more commercialization of fishing and technologies are available now. So people started to use mechanized uh, nets, or the making nets available through mechanized way of it. Therefore, a lot of people actually increasingly use this fish nets, though they still continue the traditional practices of indigenous practices of fishing using non-synthetic nets as well as hook and line fishing. So if you like to ask me more related to this, I can give you more information.
I think you've given us a lot of information on this, and I'm glad that you told us that there's also alternatives to synthetic nets that can be used. And I think from our side, from the creative side, what we need to do is we definitely need to clean up, because you did mention that you also, there's a lot of ghost diving that happens, and the fishermen can actually team up as people who can go in and retrieve these nets. So then there's an additional source of income because they kind of get back the nets to us. We train the fisher women to make products out of it, and then there's an additional income, there's a new craft, there's a new trade. And tell me if I'm wrong, but fishing is predominantly a man's profession in India, and the women are the ones who go by and sell it. So we need to get them also empowered. So this definitely is an additional way for them to take their livelihood and expand their skills, and be independent in society. Like I said, my biggest fear is plastic, because in fashion you have a lot of packaging that also comes, which is plastic. We always speak about the clothes, but packaging is invariably in plastic, and you have the tags that are there, which are again in plastic. And uh, all this gets into the food stream and gets into the water streams, which is not good for us. The one tip I would like to give everybody who's listening here is, if you do buy synthetic clothes and you do have to wash it, make sure that you wash it on lukewarm, because that reduces the breaking down of the synthetic into microfibers. And at the same time, when you're doing a wash, please do not do it every day or every next day, but try to gather it up and put it together during the weekends, and then do a do a load of it, because that ways you are also contributing to the beneficial uh, to being beneficial to the environment, and also justifying the reason for the synthetic clothes. And please do not discard it very, very quickly before wearing it at least a large number of times. Yes, so we spoke about the ways that the women could also be empowered, and how we could also have different ways that people at the fishing communities can also contribute and learn a new craft and trade. um, I have also read about a lot of fish leather which is being used. I do not know whether it is used widely in India yet, but fish has a lot of byproducts that are left behind. Like you have a lot of these large fish, like some of them are even, you can even say, even the salmon where the skin is kind of thick, where they kind of use it in tanning, and they they use it in the tanning industry, and they use different more ecological methods of tanning the hide, which is later on used as shoes and as skin for, as a replacement for leather. But unfortunately, the consumption of beef is supposed to be more, so we have a lot of beef hide that needs to be used, larger than fish skin. But what is your take on fish skin? Do you think it is a good idea to move into this direction, or do you think it's still as toxic as any other, any other skin industry?
So I'm sorry, I don't have enough information about this fish skin industry. I would suggest if it is allowed, it may increase a lot of fish are being killed for commercial purposes. So
Mm,
that is the one danger. So there will be an opportunity for a lot of people to do unregulated fishing
mm,
for this purpose. So that is the one thing I am anticipating be a bigger threat to our ocean marine lives. So therefore, I think it may not be a good idea, but I don't have enough experience on that.
okay.
With regard to your earlier question, I have to say one more thing. Maybe so the lot of fish nets are left by the big ships, and also other commercial industries, fishery industry leave a lot of unwanted nets into the sea. So these are known as the host nets. So there is one organization actually works particularly to reduce this host net from the marine waters in India,
Mm,
which I know very well. I think Friends of Marine Life.
mm,
So what they have done, they actually identify these host nets with the help of the indigenous fishes who actually knows the underwater ecosystem very well. So they have removed about 400 kilogram of host nets in just 19 minutes. So that is why your earlier mentioning of this can be an additional income for the people who are
mhm,
around the coast. Then they can also identify these host nets. They can also use sophisticated and eco-friendly technologies using their own indigenous knowledge to remove these host nets, which are covered in the rocky reefs and sunken ships and also other fishing vessels,
mhm,
because these fishermen know these places. So if we use them and identify these places,
mhm.
and we are giving alternative income to the fisherwomen who can do some products out of this house net, that will work out very well to reduce the house net in our marine ecosystems.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I also like we discussed that fishing is like the primary job of the man, and the women make sure that they clean and sell the fish. We also know that a lot of coastal communities are extremely poor, and their livelihood also depends mostly on fishing. And with large fishing, commercial fishing, their lives are at stake. With us from the fashion industry, the waters are not that clean, the fish are getting infected. But you also did mention that we need to also educate the children of the coastal communities, because we know that a lot of coastal community people are getting their children away from the coastal lands to move into the cities, because they want to give them the life that they probably never had. But you believe that educating children about the environment that they were born in, and education would make them the pioneers, for the future, and help us with the ancient indigenous knowledge that they have, that from their parents, that would otherwise fade away with modern urbanization. So could you just elaborate on that, please?
Yes, I think this is very important. The coastal communities, they have this knowledge which passed through by their previous generations. So, on the other hand, they also protect this ocean resources sustainably over the years. Therefore, they know how to look after the nature, the ocean resources. They have been practicing it, so they have this knowledge. So once they study this knowledge as part of their mainstream education, it will become very good. So they'll be able to connect their ocean lives, which they have a lot of experience. They have a lot of natural experience with this ocean life. Therefore, they are intrinsically connected with their natural environment. They have this knowledge freely available to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they can engage very meaningful conversation, meaningful dialogue with the mainstream communities or mainstream scientists or conservationists. So the conservationists can gather ideas and the knowledge and experience and traditional skills from these community members. So in that way, they can co-produce better science and better management system for the ocean resources.
Hmm.
At the moment, which is missing. So for these community members, once they are educated in this way, I can say an example from experience here in India. So we have a Coastal Students Cultural Forum, which is a youth and student-led organization. There are hundreds of graduate and postgraduate students who, some of them actually do something related to marine sciences, something related to oceanic life, which they like it because they think they can also contribute very well into this. Therefore, they have this passion. With this passion and this knowledge which they gain through uh, mainstream education, they will be able to look after even stronger and even further their natural resources. So they have this, so which will be very sustainable for the future generation. So for the last some years, we have been doing this. So before that, they were not asked to do that.
Hmm.
Therefore, a lot of unhealthy practices came to the ocean communities. So now they are realizing that they have been doing something which is not very conducive for the ocean or oceanic lives of the uh, marine ecosystem there. Therefore, they realize it. Now they actually do something about it. So we have a lot of ocean guardians or coastal guardians who voluntarily work with many organizations and with their own organization and community members. In that way, they can make ground level changes, which is more sustainable.
I've always been for education, and I think education is key. And now that we also have the SDGs, we need to use it as a North Star. And the teaching of coastal community children is something which is very, very important because, like I said, it's something that we should not forget our roots and where we come from. And this knowledge is definitely going to be beneficial for people even in the urban settings. And if you have the idea of the environment that you were born in, you would definitely be a better guiding star for everybody. It also gives your life a meaning, you know, so you're instilled with a sense of responsibility and social consciousness, where you are also being important to your surrounding, like your own fisher folk, but also the people around you. It's also very important because it generates a system of problem solving that starts off very young. And like, for example, like now we have the pandemic, and we have come to this point, unfortunately, where we're trying to treat it. But if we had to take care of it while it was at its root or its infancy, uh, you know, we wouldn't have had a problem that would have erupted of this sort. But this goes in every way, including climate change. We have come to this point because we have let it come to this point. But most times it's important to kind of uh, make sure that we tackle the problem at its root. And the best way to start is by educating our children. From my side, I would like to say a few things. That is, we need to reflect during this time, which is during the pandemic. Fashion has always been caught up in the rat race, a whirlwind of performance, and it has always been the shiny new toy. Several collections have been showcased and never sold. We've had endless samples that are generated, countless muslin prototypes, uh, and with the population that grows, we have a lot of demand that also grows. And with demand comes fast, and with fast comes demise. The solution is very simple. We need to keep the end in mind. And with regards to education, again, that we spoke, I also feel that it's obligatory to involve the SDGs as a North Star. And we need to know what we are teaching our design students, and how sustainability can be a part of the syllabus and curriculum. And they need to understand which part of the SDG they would like to impact, or would it be like they would like to impact all the SDGs, because at the end of the day, everything is interconnected. Right now, we have a huge problem that's rearing its head up, and that is the PP waste, the masks that are ending up into the landfill and into the seas. What is it as fashion designers we could do? Are we going to be working towards creating new collections, or are we going to be working towards uh, helping the community in any sort of way that we can? How is it that we could probably help reduce the medical waste? What innovative methods could we come up with? It's also equally important to understand, important to educate consumers and factories and business people that everybody has to work together in tandem, because this is the time, it's a time of renaissance. It's time for us to come together and make a change, make a difference, because money at the end of the day is not going to solve any of the problems that we have. Then last but not the least, I also have uh, a lot to say about the fabrics that are left behind. I know this has nothing to do with the coastal communication that we're having, but I just want to make it like a general talk. The fabric and the workers that are left behind in various other countries like Bangladesh, for example. So you do have a lot of bales of fabric that are left uncut and not even used up, and so many orders being cancelled. Don't you think these are things that we need to really think about, rather than focusing on the next 6 months and what's going to be the next piece, when we haven't actually used up what we still have in our kitchen? These are the few things that are there on my mind. And I think as a fashion community, we need to work together and make things happen. Working with people like Mr. Johnson, like you, who comes from the scientific research and who can actually give us the in-depth knowledge as to how we are affecting the life of people, or even the plants or the animals, like you said, with the photosynthesis, uh, is extremely important, because it helps us understand the way we are going to design for the future. And how is it that we design for more resilient communities, and communities that and design which is codependent and coexisting. If you have a few words, I would like you to say it, because from my side, I would like to conclude that for me, the oceans have been always very spiritual. And the reason it was spiritual is because it comes from the Indian roots, where, the shanka or the conch, which is the shell um, from the Indian Ocean. So we would be like, you put the shell to your ears, you can hear the ocean. So there was always a spiritual connect. And there's a sound that is om, that is normally that emanates from the conch when you blow on it or when you hear it. It is basically the sound that reminds me that we're still a small part of this grand universe, and we're doing little things together, and that our hearts all are beating together in sustainable harmony. I leave the stage to you.
Yeah, yes, that is something very important, because we, as coastal community members, we have very strong connection with the ocean. We actually very motherly connection. We worship, we are the worshippers, natural resources, or we call natural worshippers. We consider ocean as a mother. We affectionately we call Kadalamma. So Kadal means mother, Amma means mother, Kadal means ocean. So we worship Mother Ocean. So we have a lot of songs which worship the ocean. We also, a lot of fishermen, before they go to the sea, they actually do some kind of worship towards the ocean to get the blessings. Then I think it is increasingly going down, but still there are very few fishermen use such kind of practices. So, so that connection we need to bring back. The human beings and the ocean have that mother-children connection. So when we understand that mother-children connection, then we do some actions which actually influence the health of the ocean, or the reproductive capacity of the ocean. So which, as we are the children of the ocean, we will take some action to protect our mother, to sustain for a long time. So we have a saying in our culture, in coastal community culture, people say that the ship will come and go, but the ocean remains. So it is there all the time. So maybe that is something we need to take forward. And that affection, that connection between the ocean and the people should come back, should become an important aspect in our daily discussions. So in that way, we can actually give a little bit of attention, little bit of care, a little bit of affection and love towards the ocean. Sometimes this usually not happens to many outside coastal communities, so they don't see it that way sometimes. That's why I said earlier. So the indigenous coastal communities, they have this affection knowledge about the ocean, which they can pass through the other communities. Then other communities can give them more modern scientific knowledge to them. That way we can work together to protect and sustainably use our marine ocean resources.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I really love this conversation with you. And I think we're going to have a lot more conversations on this, because the oceans is something which we are all connected with. And like you said, the ocean is our mother. It's a source for our oxygen, life, everything emanates from the ocean. In fact, we ourselves are made of water, and the ocean itself covers almost 70% of the earth. So thank you so much, Mr. Johnson, for joining us. And once again, I'd like to thank Global Fashion Exchange, Fashion into Oceans, Eco Shaker, Peace Boat, the United Nations World Oceans Day. Thank you for having us. And we look forward to a lot more conversations of this sort. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Runa.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.